Today, I want to speak to you about something we all know far too well: fear and self-doubt. These quiet forces shape the way we think, the decisions we make, and the life we allow ourselves to experience. They rarely shout. Instead, they whisper, gently, almost convincingly. Fear says, "Be careful." Self-doubt murmurs, "Maybe you shouldn't." And if we listen too long, we start to believe them. But here's the truth. Fear doesn't show up when life is meaningless. It shows up when something important is unfolding. Fear is not a stop sign. It is a signal, a sign that you are standing at the edge of something meaningful, something that could change you. Think about the moments that scared you the most. Starting something new, letting something go, taking that chance, speaking your truth. Fear doesn't appear when you're stagnant. It appears when you're growing, when you're stepping toward possibility. And self-doubt? It is even more personal. Fear questions the situation, but self-doubt questions you. It brings up old memories, old mistakes, old wounds, and pretends they are still true today. But they're not. You are not the same person you were back then. You're stronger now. You've lived more. You're wiser. Yet self-doubt clings to the oldest version of you, like it hasn't noticed your evolution, with rising strength. Most people think fear and doubt mean stop. But what if they actually mean go? What if fear isn't warning you of danger, but highlighting significance? What if doubt isn't telling the truth? It's just repeating an old story you have outgrown. Your brain is wired for safety, not success. It prefers comfort, routine, predictability. Anything unfamiliar triggers its alarms. But unfamiliar doesn't mean unsafe. Uncomfortable doesn't mean wrong. In fact, the most meaningful moments of your life will first feel uncomfortable. That's the nature of growth. We expand into who we are meant to be by walking through the unknown. Every person you admire felt fear too. Every person who succeeded doubted themselves. Every courageous person you've ever looked up to shook on the inside. The difference isn't that they were fearless. The difference is that they moved anyway. Courage isn't a feeling. Courage is a choice, a decision, an action you take even with your heart pounding and your hands trembling. And the moment you understand that courage can live inside fear, something inside you shifts. You stop waiting to feel ready, and you start moving because you know the truth. Readiness is built through action, not before it. Fear often traps us in the what-if spiral. What if I fail? What if they judge me? What if I'm not enough? What if everything goes wrong? But we forget to ask the opposite questions. What if this works? What if this is the moment everything changes? What if this decision becomes the story you tell with pride years from now? Fear always imagines the worst-case scenario. But you have the power to imagine the best. And when you do, something inside you awakens. A new possibility, a new energy, a new path forward. Think about the times in your life when fear appeared the strongest. Maybe it was before starting something new. Maybe it was before ending something familiar. Maybe it was before speaking up, standing up, or taking a chance. Fear shows up at life's crossroads. It shows up when you're about to choose between the comfort of the known and the possibility of the unknown. And while fear feels like a warning, it is often an invitation to rise. Self-doubt is different. Self-doubt is more personal, more internal. Self-doubt is the voice inside that questions your ability, your strength, your potential. It reminds you of your past failures and forgets your past victories. It highlights your weaknesses while ignoring your strengths. It exaggerates your flaws and minimizes your gifts. Self-doubt builds its case using outdated data, old stories, and memories from versions of you that no longer exist. Self-doubt is not based on who you are. It is based on who you used to be. And who you used to be is not who you are now. You are wiser now. You are stronger now. You've lived more life. You've gained more insight. But self-doubt doesn't update itself. It sticks to the oldest version of you, the most uncertain version, the most inexperienced version. And unless you challenge it, unless you rewrite the story, self-doubt will hold you in a life that is smaller than your potential. Most people believe fear and self-doubt are signs they shouldn't move forward. But in truth, they are signs that you absolutely should. You don't fear things that don't matter. You don't doubt yourself in things that aren't meaningful. Fear appears when you stand at the doorway of something that could change you. And if you listen closely, it's not saying danger, it's saying growth. Our brains are wired to protect us. They're wired for survival, not success. They prefer comfort, routine, predictability. Anything outside the familiar triggers our brain's alarm system. But just because something is unfamiliar doesn't mean it's unsafe. And just because something is uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. In fact, most of the things that lead to growth begin with discomfort. The moment you understand that discomfort is not a signal to stop, but a signal to pay attention, your relationship with fear changes. Think about this. Every person you admire, every person who has achieved something significant, every person who created something inspiring, they all felt fear and self-doubt too. The difference is not that they were fearless. The difference is that they acted anyway. They understood something powerful. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is movement in the presence of fear. Courage is saying, I feel terrified, but I'm doing this anyway. Courage is the decision to rise when everything inside you says shrink. Fear and self-doubt often trap us in the what-if spiral. What if I fail? What if I get embarrassed? What if people judge me? What if I'm not good enough? What if everything goes wrong? But there is another set of questions we rarely ask. What if I succeed? What if this goes right? What if this is the moment that changes everything? What if this becomes the decision I look back on proudly? What if this step leads to opportunities I can't even imagine yet? What if this is the beginning of something extraordinary? Fear always takes you to the worst-case scenario. You must consciously take yourself to the best-case scenario. You know what's interesting? The majority of the fears people worry about never actually happen. And even the fears that do happen, we almost always handle them better than we expected. We are stronger in action than we are in imagination. When we imagine, fear dominates. When we act, courage shows up. You have lived through moments you once believed you couldn't handle. You have overcome situations that felt overwhelming. You have faced uncertainty and confusion and change, and you're still here. You didn't just survive, you grew, you learned, you adapted, you evolved. And if you reflect on your past, you'll notice something remarkable. Your fear predicted disaster, but reality brought resilience. Now let's talk about failure, because fear and self-doubt both revolve around it. Many people believe failure is something to avoid at all costs, but failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is the partner of success. It is the path, not the detour. Every successful person has failed more times than the average person has even tried. Failure is not a verdict, it's feedback. It teaches, it guides, it refines. Failure reveals what doesn't work, so you can find what does. You learn far more from failure than you ever learn from success. Success confirms, failure instructs. But self-doubt tricks you into believing that failure is final. It tells you that one wrong move means the end. But failure doesn't end your journey. Quitting does. Mistakes don't end your path. Stopping does. Setbacks don't define you. Your response does. Imagine if you approached failure not as a threat, but as a teacher. Imagine if you saw every setback as part of the process. Imagine if you saw every setback as part of the process. Imagine if you stopped trying to avoid mistakes and instead embraced the truth that mistakes are part of mastery. Every expert was once a beginner. Every master was once mediocre. Every confident person once doubted themselves. Every strong person once felt fragile. You are not behind. You are becoming. There is a version of you waiting on the other side of fear. A version who is more confident, more capable, more courageous, more self-assured. But you cannot meet that version while staying in the comfort zone. Growth does not happen in comfort. Comfort does not create strength. Comfort never leads to evolution. If your goal is to experience a life that feels rich, meaningful, fulfilling, exciting, purposeful, then you must be willing to feel discomfort. You must be willing to feel fear, not to eliminate it, but to coexist with it, to move with it, to lead even while it follows. Fear will always be part of your story, but it does not have to be the author. There is an inner voice you carry, your internal narrator, and for many people, that narrator is harsh. It criticizes, it doubts, it warns, it limits. But the important thing to remember is this: your narrator is not the truth. Your narrator is simply a habit, a pattern, a familiar script you've repeated for years. You can rewrite that script. You can shift your self-talk from, "I don't know if I can do this," to, "I'm willing to try." From, "I'm not ready," to, "I'm growing." From, "I'm scared," to, "I'm excited." From, "I might fail," to, "But I might succeed." From, "What if everything goes wrong?" to, "What if this changes my life?" Words matter. What you say to yourself matters. You cannot plant seeds of doubt and expect a harvest of confidence. You cannot feed your fear and expect courage to grow. Confidence is not something you are given. Confidence is something you build, and you build it through action. You build it by showing up even when you don't feel ready. You build it by doing the thing that scares you. You build it by proving to yourself that you can survive discomfort. Confidence is a side effect of courage. Small acts of courage, repeated over time, create unshakable confidence. Fear says, "You can't handle this," but courage says, "Watch me." Fear says, "Don't even try," But determination says, trying is how I grow. Fear says, this is too big. But resilience says, I'll take it one step at a time. Your journey doesn't require leaps. It requires steps, small steps, consistent steps. Courageous steps. Fear is loudest before the first step. Once you move, fear loses its power. Once you act, fear begins to fade. You have a decision to make in your life. Will you be led by fear or pulled by purpose? Will you shrink because of doubt or rise because of possibility? Will you live small because it feels safe or live boldly because it feels right? You already know which version of you feels true. You know your dreams, you know your desires, you know the life you want. But fear and self-doubt create fog between where you are and where you want to be. They make the path look unclear. But here's the truth. Clarity doesn't come before action. Clarity comes from action. You don't get confidence first, you earn it. You don't get certainty first, you discover it. You don't get experience first, you build it. You don't get rid of fear first, you learn to walk with it. You are capable of more than you've shown the world, more than you've shown yourself. Courageous steps. Fear is loudest before the first step. Once you move, fear loses its power. Once you act, fear begins to fade. You have a decision to make in your life. Will you be led by fear or pulled by purpose? Will you shrink because of doubt or rise because of possibility? Will you live small because it feels safe or live boldly because it feels right? You already know which version of you feels true. You know your dreams, you know your desires, you know the life you want. But fear and self-doubt create fog between where you are and where you want to be. They make the path look unclear. But here's the truth. Clarity doesn't come before action. Clarity comes from action. You don't get confidence first, you earn it. You don't get certainty first, you discover it. You don't get experience first, you build it. You don't get rid of fear first, you learn to walk with it. You are capable of more than you've shown the world, more than you've shown yourself. Courageous steps. Fear is loudest before the first step. Once you move, fear loses its power. Once you act, fear begins to fade. You have a decision to make in your life. Will you be led by fear or pulled by purpose? Will you shrink because of doubt or rise because of possibility? Will you live small because it feels safe or live boldly because it feels right? You already know which version of you feels true. You know your dreams, you know your desires, you know the life you want. But fear and self-doubt create fog between where you are and where you want to be. They make the path look unclear. But here's the truth. Clarity doesn't come before action. Clarity comes from action. You don't get confidence first, you earn it. You don't get certainty first, you discover it. You don't get experience first, you build it. You don't get rid of fear first, you learn to walk with it. You are capable of more than you've shown the world, more than you've shown yourself.